Hello everyone, welcome back to the Flix Files. My name's Roger. So it's deep dive time. My previous video was about the films of Terry Gilliam that I owned, and I said that I would be choosing one of those to talk about as a deep dive. So today I'm going to be talking about the film Time Bandits, released in 1981. Now, forgive me for swearing, but I absolutely fucking love Time Bandits. I think it's just a fantastic piece of fantasy cinema. So I'm going to say right now that if you like fantasy cinema, the likes of Lord of the Rings and things like that, and you haven't seen Time Bandits, then stop this video. Find a copy, watch it, and come back. I won't mind, but you must watch it right now if you've not seen it. And if you have seen it, but you've not seen it in decades, then please watch it again because it is just superb. And I just want to quickly say before I start off rambling that I've had quite a jump in subscribers recently. So anyone that's newly subscribed that's not watched one of my deep dives before, I think I should just say that I tend to do them in one take. So I've set my camera recording, sit in front of it and just start talking. And then I'll edit in clips of what I'm talking about. So I don't rely on editing and cutting out all the natural pauses in me speaking. I just don't do that. And the reason I do it that way is because to me, it feels more natural. If I was to bump into you in the street and we got talking and you said that you love the movies and I went, oh yeah, I know a movie you should see, then I wouldn't be editing out what I'm talking about and I wouldn't be scripted. So it's trying to give that vibe that I'm just one friend talking to another saying, this is a movie that I think you should watch and this is the reason why. So, Time Bandits. I first saw this back in 1982. I had one of my best friends at school. We had a lot of shared interests. And that included the taste in movies that we had. And I remember going down to his house one weekend and he rented out Time Bandits and we sat and watched it and we loved it. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if when it ended, we just rewound the tape and watched it all over again. And I think one of the reasons that it really identified with us is that the main protagonist in the movie is a young boy called Kevin. And he was kind of about the same age that we were when we first watched it. So that gave us kind of a hook to be drawn into the film. And it's such a clever, inventive movie that has real streaks of Terry Gilliam's visual genius when he was at his absolute height of his directorial powers, should we say. So I'm not going to go through it beat by beat. I'll give you a brief overview of kind of what the film's about, and then I'll talk about specific bits and why I love them. But it's fair to say that I just love the whole movie. I could talk about it scene by scene, but this video will be 2 hours long. So, as I say, the main protagonist is a little boy called Kevin, and when we first see him, he's living in a house with his mum and dad, and his mum and dad, for some bizarre reason, are fixated with kitchen appliances. And in order to kind of escape his reality, he likes reading history books, and he's got a particular fascination with ancient Greece. And the movie starts to kick off where he's in bed, and suddenly his wardrobe in his bedroom starts to shake and there's a loud rumbling sound that gets louder and louder. And a horse, a knight in armor riding a horse, jumps out of his wardrobe, jumps over his bed, and then where he should have a bedroom wall, there's just like a big forest roadway that goes off into the distance, and this horse gallops down this road through this forest. So Kevin's obviously completely startled and bewildered by this, and he hides under the covers. And then when he comes back up to peek, everything's gone and his bedroom wall's back where it was before. So you think, what on earth was going on there? Is he just got a very, very vivid imagination, or is there something quite supernatural happening here? So the very next night he gets in bed, but this time he's prepared and he's got a torch and a little Polaroid camera. And he's determined that if it happens again, he'll take a photograph of it to prove that he's not insane. And sure enough, the bedroom wardrobe starts to shake again. And then he sees the door of the wardrobe slowly open. And 6 little people come out of the wardrobe. Now, these gang of little people are fantastic. They've each got their own individual personality. And so they become very identifiable through the movie. You get to learn each character and what their little foibles are. For instance, one of them is always eating. He's always hungry. And the leader of these little people is a character called Randall. And I was going to try and name the other 5, but I probably won't be able to remember their names off the top of my head. But they have names like Vermin. I think one's called Fidget and one's called Og and things like that. And they get startled by Kevin because he shines the torch on them. And we learn that these 6 little people work for a person that they call the Supreme Being, who we may as well assume is God. And they have a map, and the map shows them where there are time portals. And I think their job is to fix these time portals and remove them. They're like rips in time. So they have this map that shows them where they all are. And it's while they're in the bedroom that suddenly this Supreme Being appears as a big bright light and this big face. And the face is saying, "Return the map." As if they've stolen the map and it shouldn't really be theirs. And as they're scrambling around trying to escape this face, the bedroom wall suddenly moves backward as they lean against it. And you can see Kevin going, "It's never done that before." And so they start pushing this wall, and they're kind of pushing it down this long tunnel. And eventually the tunnel ends into this black void, so the wall just falls away. And they all just have to jump out of the end of this tunnel into this black void. And when you watch this as a child, it's quite scary. And I can remember thinking how terrified I would be if one of my bedroom walls suddenly did that. And it turns out that this black void is one of the time rips. And they end up falling into the middle of the Napoleonic Wars. And it's there that we come across one of the first great characters in this film, played by the absolutely brilliant British actor Ian Holm. And he plays Bonaparte, but he plays him with a terrible height fixation.
One side, him on the other. It's like being at the bottom of a bloody well.
So apparently Bonaparte was historically known for not being very tall. And in Time Bandits, Napoleon is obsessed with this. And he's always making light of the fact that, yes, he's small, but there are many great people that were small that went on to do amazing things. And his portrayal of it is just absolutely hilarious. In fact, I read that when Gilliam directed this movie, he was laughing so hard watching Ian Holm play Napoleon that sometimes he would just have to leave the set because he was being too disruptive. And it is absolutely fantastic. And we learned that the little gang of people are robbers, and they get Napoleon drunk with a view to getting him completely blottoed to the point that he passes out. And then they steal all of his silver. And that's all they're using the map for. They're using the map to get these time portals, to go to different periods in time, and to just steal from people and accrue wealth. And that's their whole mission. So we begin to see why this Supreme Being wants the map back, because they're abusing it. It's not its original purpose. And we're introduced to the main antagonist in the movie, that's played by the fantastic British actor David Warner. And I think prior to this, the only other movie I saw David Warner in was Tron. He played the main baddie in Tron. And I don't think his character's got a name in this film. He's just literally called Evil. And he's just this real nasty character that can watch what these little people are doing through sort of this bowl of water. It's like something from Harry Potter. It allows him to view things remotely. And he has a couple of minions around him. But his whole design, and he has long fingernails, is a real good pantomime-y, snidey, nasty bastard. And he obviously wants to get his hands on the map as well, because he realizes it has tremendous value to increase his plans and to take over the world. So he'll come into it more at the end of the movie. But inevitably they rob from Napoleon and go through another time hole. And they then find themselves in a period of medieval English history where they bump into Robin Hood, played by John Cleese, who has, again, an absolutely terrific cameo, and he plays John Cleese like the Duke of Edinburgh. So he's very well spoken and very, very polite, and it's just hilarious. You've just got to watch it.
And you're a robber too, are you? How long have you been a robber? 4'1". Good Lord. Jolly good. 4'1". Yes. Well, that is a long time, isn't it?
And of course they turn up with this big blanket full of silverware. And Robin Hood and his merry men think that they are donating all of this silverware to give to the poor. So they've only just accrued all of this wealth and then they have to give it away. So the movie kind of plays out like that, where they go to different time periods. And there's a point in the movie where Kevin runs through a different time portal to the others. So he ends up in a different period of history. And it's there that he meets the King Agamemnon, played by Sean Connery, the wonderful Sean Connery. And again, it's such a delight to see him in this movie. Not the kind of movie he would have normally done, but he wanted to work with Terry Gilliam. And he just lifts the movie so much whenever he's in it. And he plays such a lovable character in this, Sean Connery, to the point that he kind of develops feelings for Kevin, and he wants to treat him as kind of a surrogate son. And Kevin has always liked ancient Greece, and now he's actually living in it. He wants to stay there. So it's rather sad that he's prepared to give up his normal life with his kitchen appliance obsessed parents to live in ancient Greece. But the gang of little people have other plans, and they catch up with him where he is, and they steal him and basically take them with him to yet another period in history. So, you know, they just take him away from Sean Connery. And I think at that point they end up on the Titanic. So the movie kind of darts about beautifully, always keeping your interest. And inevitably they end up in the sea through reasons I'm not going to explain, but they get picked up by an ogre and his wife on this galleon. And this ogre is such a hilarious character because he sees all of these little people and Kevin, and he just sees them as a meal. So his wife immediately starts plans of, oh, I'll cook up a nice recipe and we'll get them in the pot. And the ogre has a bit of a back problem, as bizarrely as that sounds. So they help him fix his back problem, and they fool him into throwing him overboard, and they end up kind of commandeering the ship. And just as you think, how can this movie get any more brilliant? We then find that there's a huge giant in the ocean underneath this galleon. And as the giant's walking out of the ocean, it comes up out of the water underneath this galleon. So it's kind of wearing the galleon that this group of little people and Kevin are on. It's wearing it as a bloody hat. And Gilliam, with a fantastic piece of high-speed photography and low camera angles, he really gives the impression of this huge giant like lumbering up this beach with huge, heavy, loud footsteps. And the giant sits down and he takes the ship off the top of its head. And it's there that you can escape. And it's an absolutely fantastic sequence. And the movie is littered with things like that. And so we get to kind of the end of the movie, which is a face-off against David Warner's evil character. And they have a battle. And what makes it fun about the battle is that they use the time map to go to various parts of history to draw upon help in this battle. So for instance, one of them gets a moon buggy with a laser on the front of it. And then another one gets a group of cowboys that have lassos that come in and try and corral the evil character. but the evil character shows off his magical powers. And there's a sequence that I absolutely love where these cowboys encircle him and they all lasso him. And then the evil character kind of turns into a sort of, into kind of a funfair ride. And he starts to spin around on the spot. And this music begins to play. And then the top of his head opens up. And this sort of blade comes out on this long arm. And then as he's spinning around with all these cowboys desperately trying to hang on, he cuts all of the rope so they all go flying off in different directions. And it's just absolutely hilarious. So, yeah, they kind of face off against the evil character. And in the end, the Supreme Being turns up and he incinerates the evil character and just turns him into a big pile of burnt ash, basically, like burnt rock. And he just crumbles into lots of pieces. And that's kind of the end of the movie. I've skipped over that very, very quickly. But I don't want to give away too much because if you've seen this movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it too much for you. I'd rather you sit and watch it and just experience it for the sheer brilliance that it is. It's just such a fantastic piece of fantasy cinema. And for that reason, it's in my top 20 all-time favorite movies. And that's why, as I say, Terry Gilliam is one of my absolute favorite directors. And I think of all the films that he did, this was probably one of his most successful. I know when it opened in America in 1981, it was at #1 on the box office. And I think it made a profit of $36 million. And the movie cost $5 million to make. So he did really well. And it was good that it did well because that enabled him to make his magnum opus, as it were, which was his next movie, Brazil. Now that movie, as I say, is one of my all-time favorites. So I will be doing a video about that at some point, and when I do, it will probably be a much longer video because there is a lot in that movie that I just adore so much and I want to talk about. So there we are, that's Time Bandits from 1981, directed by Terry Gilliam. I hope you enjoyed that kind of little overview recommendation, should we say, rather than a review. If you did, give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed and this is the first of my videos that you've seen, if you kind of like the style of me rambling on about a particular movie, then you can subscribe, it doesn't cost anything. And there we are. I'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.